So, yeah, I mean, so we have one here. Pastor Caro, clerical term is. Yeah, Reverend.
We're all set, the doors are open. She's gonna take the notes off there.
Oh, the recording, okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Pollack. I'm Chair of the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. Happy New Year to all. All right, it's been a while since we've seen you. And if there are people with cell phones in the room, that's actually a joke, because I know everybody has theirs. Please silence it. We'll move through the agenda. I have no new announcements. We may talk later on, but we will start out with the native land acknowledgement. And is Mr. Graham here? Not? Again, he's not here. Okay, well, we'll.
Read it if you have it.
I don't have it with me. Do you? I'm going to go through this myself, okay? And and I'm going to ask anybody else to.
I've got it right here. Just give me one moment to pull it up.
We're pulling it up on the phone.
And we can just condense it. Dave actually did it off memory last time.
Yeah, you did pretty good.
And it was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Dave's not here now, so.
In fact, I'd love to transcribe what he actually said.
Next time I'll take notes.
Found it even fuller in
Here we go.
the actual one.
Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, Native American Land Acknowledgement. In keeping with our values of equity and inclusion, and to support those who experience marginalization, this evening's meeting will begin with a Native American land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the ancestral homelands of the Namkeg and Agawam people. Historical evidence shows that the Namkeg and Agawam were peaceful in their relationship with European settlers. However, their population depleted rapidly due to smallpox and other pandemic Old World diseases, unknowingly introduced by earlier European colonizers to the East Coast. To honor the Namkeg and Agawam communities, along with any other indigenous peoples who inhabited these lands now known as Danvers, Massachusetts, and who may be lost to history, let us take a moment to recognize the past, present, and future of indigenous peoples and reflect on our roles within settler colonialism. We acknowledge these ancestral grounds we have collectively gathered upon and support the resilience and strength that indigenous people have shown worldwide.
Thank you very much, Shilpa. Looking for a second, or a motion to pass the minutes approved. Let's get the minutes approved. Are there any questions about the minutes from last? You all should have received copies. I looked it through. It looked pretty accurate to me. I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here last time.
Absolutely. Oh, any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. This is the point in the meeting where we give citizens an opportunity to ask us questions. We will limit you, if you decide to speak, to about 3 minutes, and we will just listen. We're interested in anything anyone has to say. We will not respond at this point, but we usually respond after the committee has an opportunity to say something. So are there any folks here that would like to speak to the committee about anything on their mind? If not, we'll move on. We have one liaison here. Always Lieutenant Sullivan is here. Anything to report, Lieutenant Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I have three things for the committee this month. The first is just wanted to update you on a couple of trainings. I didn't mention at the last meeting I was here, but back in November, I attended the 6th annual, I have to make sure I get the name right, the Faith-Based Organizations Safety and Security Seminar. It's a statewide event. I want to say there were probably 300, 350 attendees in the group. It was day-long training covering the current threat briefing status for religious and faith-based institutions, schools, buildings, hospitals, as well as updates on suspicious activity reporting for law enforcement, planning considerations for future events, as well as segments that involved hate groups and hate crimes. This was at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough. It's hosted by the Kraft family. I've never been to the facility before. It's their Sports Illustrated venue, which is this giant multimedia. I'm used to going to an audio-video presentation where nothing works. And they had, I guess they're the people that when you watch the NFL, they do the lights and sound. So everything worked. But it was a very, very interesting day. And the Kraft family has put it on, like I said, for 6 years in a row. So next year, I hope to go again, and maybe we can invite people from the committee. There's no fee to attend. Maybe folks from the committee, or if any of the liaisons wanted to attend. It was an interesting day. That kind of rolls into each year I talk about our ongoing in-service training for the department. So right now, it's not just Danvers, but every police officer in the Commonwealth is started up our new year of in-service trainings. One of the in-service training blocks is a 3-hour block that involves hate speech, hate crimes, and hate groups. This year was pretty interesting. Each year it evolves a little bit. Some changes in information. One of the things that we've always discussed was barriers to reporting, and in many different types of crimes, there are always different barriers as to why people may be reluctant to report to police. It's not all uncommon to always hear the same information about, like, you would generalize, you would hear mistrust in police or mistrust in government as one reason why any individual from any group might not want to come forward and make the report after they became a victim. This is the first year that they actually spent time discussing in-depth different incidents to kind of hammer home to police officers. This was actually covered at the faith-based security assessment training. And then it's also, that was just to those attendees, but it was part of the program pushed out statewide. It was really interesting to see that they laid out a slide deck that showed from the 1865 period, starting with lynching and Jim Crow laws, into 1882, Chinese Exclusion Acts, the 1830s to 1939's anti-Semitism in America, the 1940s Japanese internment camps, the 1969 Stonewall Uprising, and 2001 9/11, and then also currently we kind of think of them as historical events, but also maybe how things, police, government, community interactions, as recently as 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic. So it really took some time to focus on government actors. And it's not just limited to police, because each of these scenarios, the police don't ever exist in a bubble by ourselves. Generally, the actions that are taken by the police were laws passed by our legislature. And they were laws and actions that were supported by our courts. And then those orders were carried out by the police. But in this training, people were asked to take a moment to think about, instead of just generalizing, well, why might it be the community doesn't trust the government or doesn't trust the police. But the presenter talked about how, what the police were doing in each of these actions that may make those communities reluctant to report to us. So I just thought it's the first time that they've covered it. And on a personal note, I don't know if it's full circle or aha, but the first time I ever met Jasmine was in this building. I came into her office and I was one of those, because I work where I do and she does where she does. We were both told we had to go meet each other. I was expecting, hi, I'm Rob and you're Jasmine, and we're gonna talk about what we might do together in the future. And she hit me with a question that was, have I ever had any training, or do I know anything about police being used in rounding up slaves, even here in New England? And I admit I was taken aback by the question. I wasn't ready for it. And the answer is no. Even though I've done a lot of work with hate crimes and hate groups, never thought of it. I've done a lot of work with understanding why different groups might be reluctant. But not even, even in when the days when I worked in sexual assault and exploitation cases, there are whole other reasons why people are reluctant to come to me. But I had never thought about it that way. I was a little bit offended at first. It wasn't the conversation I expected to have. And my first thought was, well, I've never done that, and I didn't sign up for it. I don't know any of my colleagues that did it, and I kind of went on my way. A short time later, I don't know what I was doing. It was some training someplace, and there was a flyer from Boston Police that talked about the Boston Police, like part of their job was to go and look for slaves who had run away from southern states, right? And now we have this. So I guess this is just my way of saying Jasmine was right. And it took me a couple of years to get to this point about that. But it was a great training, and like I said, it is rolled out to all police officers, so hopefully it is continuing education, continuing understanding of the problems we're facing and some of the hurdles we have to overcome to make ourselves accessible to lots of different groups for lots of different reasons. That's my training. I have two more things. Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I could stop here for questions, or I can.
I want you to keep on.
Okay, keep on.
You're not the first person that was ever hit and stopped in your tracks by Jasmine. So, go ahead, please continue.
The second, I know it's probably a question that's on everybody's mind, and I kind of anticipated maybe audience questions this evening on it. But law enforcement activities surrounding ICE, immigrations and customs enforcements and detainers. I had a discussion with this with Chief Lovell just the other day, and there's nothing new to report for the Danvers Police. We're not doing anything new today that we weren't doing 2 weeks ago, and honestly that we weren't doing last year, the year before, or 5 years before it. It's important for the public to understand that ICE, the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement detainers, are not warrants. They are requests to have somebody held in custody while ICE decides what, if anything, they want to do with that person. It has been the law in Massachusetts. It is a Supreme Judicial Court case law that expressly prohibits individuals in Massachusetts from being held solely on an ICE detainer. So that prohibits any state or municipal police department or any sheriff's department from holding any individual based solely on an ICE detainer. So that is a practice that statewide, it's been something we're doing for a few years now, and we will continue to do so. It is unlawful for us to hold people on ICE detainers. People that would be held in Massachusetts would be, so if they come into our custody, those are individuals who have committed offenses, sometimes in Danvers, sometimes in surrounding communities, but those are typically on state crimes, state offenses, things that we or our partners in the area have investigated. And sometimes our officers might make an arrest, or we could find an individual that has a warrant for their arrest. That warrant would be a warrant that's issued by the Massachusetts trial court system. We do occasionally find individuals who are wanted on charges from other states. Say there's a court in New Hampshire who issued a warrant for somebody's arrest, that is a warrant, not an ICE detainer. It's either signed by a judge or a clerk magistrate. There are specifics around the ones that we can enforce. So the first thing that has to happen is the agency who issued the warrant has to put it into a computer system indicating they do want that person, and if the person, and they are willing to go through the legal process to bring that person back to their state. It has to be for certain, there are certain groups of offenses, so if it's a minor offense, misdemeanors, those, even though there might be that warrant in the system, we could still not hold them on that out-of-state warrant. If it was a serious offense that the department, our jurisdiction was looking to bring them back to their state, we would process that person there. They would be charged here in Massachusetts as a fugitive from justice. And they would go before our court system. Our judge here, we work out of the Salem District Court, would determine whether or not to hold that person. That person decides whether or not they want to fight rendition back to the state looking to bring them back. And if they fight it, they would stay here, or if they waive, they would be brought back to whatever state. And generally, the courts allow the agency looking for them a certain, they don't have a blanket amount of time to come get them. So if the court says, all right, we'll hold, the hearing's over, the person's gonna go back, you have 3 days to come get them, or else we're going to let them go. And that very often deals with the severity of the crime that they're involved with. But again, those are warrants that are issued by state courts that are just in different states. What we do when we get an ICE detainer is to, and they do from time to time come in. Our procedure is to note it. We write it in the arrest report. We document that we've received. We acknowledge receiving the detainer, but it doesn't change what we do as far as holding the arrestee. We inform ICE that we're a Massachusetts agency. We're unable to hold a person based on a detainer. So, and they're advised of that. So the person would have to be in our custody to begin with, which means they either committed an offense here in Danvers, which we arrested them for, or there was a warrant, a mass trial court warrant that we arrested them for. We call the bail clerk. The bail clerk's advised of what the offense was. They're advised of that person's criminal history. The bail clerk makes the determination what, if any, amount of bail to release that person on. So if you're released on personal recognizance, it's simply your promise to appear in court. It used to be, it was free, but it still cost you $40. You had to come up with the bail clerk's fee to get out. A few months ago, Massachusetts did away with that. So there's no longer a personal fee. If they release you on no bail, you just let go. The bail clerk has the option to put any amount of money on that person. And again, that is set by the courts, not by the police department, and it generally has to do with what the nature of the crime was, if the person has a history of default from court, and what the person's criminal history is. But nothing to do with the ICE detainer, completely separate from that. The chief and I had a conversation about, it's been in the news recently, and still nothing has changed with us. We do not have any information indicating there are going to be any immigration roundups here in Danvers. Nothing has been expressed to us to expect anything like that. Danvers police officers are not empowered to enforce federal laws or immigration laws, and we would not be participating in any of those activities. Again, that is nothing new. It's something we wouldn't do in the past, just because that's not our role in the criminal justice system. What we will continue to do, though, is to work with our state, federal, and municipal law enforcement partners on focusing on crime prevention, as well as investigating, identifying, and arresting dangerous criminals, as well as criminal organizations. Those are things, like we might work with state or federal partners, federal law enforcement agents, on the robbery at CVS the other day. We might work with state or federal agencies and tracking down people who were involved in drug trafficking, the people that distribute the poisonous fentanyl, heroin, and carfentanil that are killing our families, our loved ones, our kids. We'll work with those partners on human trafficking, individuals, both sex and labor trafficking. We get a lot of help from our federal partners in that area, as well as those who exploit children and elders. So those are the types of offenses that we would be working with our federal partners on, not immigration and customs issues. I have one more, Mr. Chairman, but I would happily stop there for any questions if anybody has anything.
Please, continue.
And the last is just, I think we may have, I don't know if we talked about it in meetings or just informally in past, but the chief and I had a discussion about recent, there've been a few select board meetings, and it may be some of the meetings that I've attended here, and it's something that we're noticing that's popping up very often is we're hearing the public say, you know, I reached out to the police, and the response was, there's nothing we can do. If anybody watched the select board meeting last night, District Attorney Tucker did a really good job about explaining some of the limitations that the police and his office face as part of juvenile justice reform, and sometimes those are the reasons why, you know, a police officer might say to somebody, well, there is nothing we can do. In the case, you know, we might have state laws or bylaws that say a group of, like, I think they were calling them hoodlums yesterday on their bikes, they can't commit a crime if they're a certain age. So in that sense, there is nothing that we can do. But very often, we recognize that we need to do a better job with kind of filling that gap between what the resident's reporting and then what I can do as a police officer. I had two recent cases, one Jasmine sent to me and one our friend Judge Mills sent to me. In Jasmine's case, there was a family who has a harassment prevention order, and the individuals that were named as defendants in the order were continuing to harass this family, and they believe that the harassment was based on bias towards the family's religion as well as sexual orientation. And the police department had taken a number of these complaints from the family as the harassing behaviors went on. And each time they were either told, yeah, well, you know, we'll make a report about it, or there's nothing we can do, and we'll just kind of note it. And that family reached out to Jasmine. She put them in touch with me. I was able to meet with the mom, and just taking the time to explain to her that in each of those individual cases, when we make a complaint, a criminal complaint against somebody, we have a certain set of elements that has to be met for each crime. And if you haven't ticked each box, we cannot allege that crime has occurred. We can't summons that person to court. We have to meet them all. And they're always adding new ones. And then the court will add some additional ones through case law. So that's very often where somebody's told, we hear what you're saying, but we can't help you. One of the things in this case was the importance of this family continuing to come and make reports to us, because one instance of harassment by itself would not get us into the court. We couldn't take out a complaint. But if we looked at the pattern of history over the past year, how many complaints they had, we were able to re-examine it on things that were already reported and said, based on the totality of the circumstances, can we now ask for a complaint to be issued to help this family? So we asked for a hearing, and the defendant was brought to the court, and the court's response was, don't do it again, because next time we'll shake our finger at you a little more stern. And then I want to say the next day, we got another complaint that it was an additional offense. So essentially what we did is we just went and arrested the person and brought them in to hopefully end that action. But that family was grateful that they didn't understand why their report, like every time I report, why isn't it involving court action or arrest? Nobody had taken the time to explain to them, well, based upon the particulars of what happened, I don't have enough to establish probable cause that a crime was committed. It doesn't mean you're not being harassed. It doesn't mean the family isn't experiencing a very difficult time. It's just that wasn't explained to them. In a very different case, Judge Mills had a friend reach out to me, and that person had experienced some threats. And the police officer that spoke to the individual, he said, well, I told them what happened, and basically it was, there's nothing we can do. And he just wanted to know, why. So it didn't take very long, just a brief phone conversation, and I was able to explain to him that, tell me what happened, and then, well, here's the law. When I pursue a charge of threats, I have to meet these elements. And for something as simple as threats, there's actually quite a few of them. They've just, as of 2 months ago, the SJC added another set of requirements for threats. So the important takeaway for him was, very often when people commit threats, either in person or online, they're smart about it. They go up to that line. They know what to say, right? Just not enough that I could establish there's probable cause to allege a crime was committed. But that doesn't mean the person didn't feel threatened. So there's a disconnect between what the family experiences and then what we as law enforcement can do. So if we just kind of take that time to, instead of just saying, it wasn't a threat, there's nothing we can do, to acknowledge, well, we understand they said that so that you would feel threatened, but here's the law that I have to live within. And again, we would ask that keep bringing those complaints forward, because we could then, maybe we can scotch tape them together. As, and we couldn't get the complaint on one, but we can get the complaint on many. If you watched the select board meeting last night, there was some residents that talked about some potential contractor fraud and elder exploitation. And the family had said at select board that the police's response was, there's nothing we can do. When I spoke to them, he said he was paraphrasing. He's not actually sure if we actually said that, or we explained contractor fraud. It's complex. There's a lot we have to prove. They're not easy cases to bring, but it should be looked at, documented. Maybe my case could help solve a case someplace else. So tomorrow we have a staff meeting. I've had a conversation with the chief and the captain. It's funny, great minds apparently think alike, because he also, at this meeting, he didn't know I wanted to talk about this. I didn't know he wanted to talk about it. But it's an agenda item for us to bring to the department, maybe spending some time, instead of, it's not a threat. You really don't feel like what your family's experiencing isn't real, or we don't care. We care a lot, it's just I can't always bring a case. So we need to find a better way to express that to people, so.
Thank you very much. That was quite enlightening. I really appreciate the thoroughness of your report.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from members of the committee? Karen?
Yes, thank you for that comprehensive. A couple of questions. One is with the first training that you referred to, the in-service training. Was that provided? Who delivered that training?
The faith-based one, or the in-service, like
The in-service.
The in-service. That's the MPTC, the municipal. Because you asked me, I forget their acronym name.
It's okay.
The Criminal Justice Training Council.
Okay.
So that's the group that decides statewide how many hours on what classes, and the learning objectives and the outlines. They approve everything. They put the class together. We're in, since COVID, we've switched to it's part in person, part online. So that was one of the online classes.
Okay.
So they actually do a live class where you could attend the class but record it and then send it out statewide. So it's up to each department. Everyone has to attend it, whether it be one of the live classes or watch this 3-hour video.
Okay.
But that's by MPTC, Municipal Police Training Committee.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And my second question is related to any potential action by ICE, and you very clearly stated that the Danvers Police Department could not be involved in that. But that doesn't mean that ICE couldn't actually take action in and of themselves. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And thirdly, I just want to thank you for your transparency in sharing what you've shared, given that the department has received a number of these, like, sort of resident responses of like, oh, we're told that they can't do anything more. And like, that's kind of a hard thing to hear. And I appreciate, kind of your acknowledging that, not only addressing these individual cases, but also the fact that you'll discuss this as a department, how to kind of change a predominant narrative. So thank you for that.
There's also, Mr. Chairman, if I could also just briefly mention, there's another case where this is shown to be very successful. I call them the Nazis on the Bridge, the Nationalist Social Club that had their sign over 114 in Danvers, the rail trail, and they also had a sign in Saugus over Route 1. So that standalone case, that standalone hate incident in Danvers, it wasn't something that we were able to criminally charge anybody with, but that group, several members of the group have been indicted by the Attorney General's office. And having worked cases with the AG's office in the past, I'm pretty confident at what they did is they took the Danvers police report, they took the Saugus police report, they took the Boston police report, they took all these individual cases that maybe there wasn't enough to go after an individual or the group, and they put them all together and made a much larger case. And also going through the AG's office, they're much larger crimes, and they have prosecutors that specialize in going after those types of individuals. So it's pacing those all together can work.
Anyone else? Shilpa, please.
I just had a couple of comments. So for the in-service training, it's really encouraging to know that you're discussing the history of policing, because it really does inform policing today, what happened in the past. There's a book called Slavery by Another Name by Douglas Blackman. Really talks about post-Civil War, when previously enslaved people were arrested for things like jaywalking or being homeless, and that was to fill that caveat in the 13th Amendment that you cannot be enslaved unless you've committed a crime. So that really, there's a lot there in the history of policing that can really inform how things work even today. It's very in-depth, and I would encourage you to read up more, because there's a lot. The second thing is, when we're talking about ICE and for people knowing their rights, this is just a general comment that the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition, MIRA, they have a Know Your Rights training and information in several different languages. So it doesn't matter if you're a citizen, if you're undocumented, if you have a green card, if you have a student visa, everybody has rights in this country. So it's good for people to know. Those rights can be accessed on the MIRA Coalition homepage, and they're in several different languages. So I just wanted to put that out there too. But thank you so much again for your transparency and your thoroughness. We always appreciate having you here.
Thank you.
Shilpa, what was the author's name?
Douglas Blackman. It's called Slavery by Another Name.
And just picking up on what Shilpa shared about MIRA, the Lawyers for Civil Rights, also in partnership with the organization that I work with, has launched an immigrant hotline. So I'm happy to pass that number to you in case that's useful for you to pass on to anybody.
Anyone else?
I just want to say thank you for all the information. I would be curious, you probably don't know, but I'm curious to know if there have been any concerns with some of the families that we have. I would assume that concerns are heightened now, and I just, I don't know if that involves your office, just making sure that people are not being targeted in any way and that sort of thing. But I assume that if there was something, you would have reported on it, but I'm just curious to see, hopefully, that they remain safe and secure, where we have them and all of that stuff. So if anything does come about with that, if you could share with us, we would appreciate it.
To my knowledge, Center Board has not reached out to us, or their Gladys?
Yeah.
Agnes.
Agnes,
Agnes,
yes.
yeah.
I have not heard anything from them at all. And the chief or captain have brought up, and generally if they have concerns, it would be sent down to the shifts, just to be aware.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions here? Down here, any questions? Welcome.
Yeah, sorry I missed most. I had another meeting earlier, but always appreciate your input.
Okay, we'll move on. Agenda number 6, MLK report out. And Karen, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Yes, Monday from 4 to 6, we were at Danvers High School celebrating the Danvers 26th annual celebration of MLK Day, known as Move Like King, for the second year in a row, which shared the stories and narratives of 6 residents who are moving like king in the community. And the event opened up with 2 community offerings, one for children, thanks to Inclusion Sports, and one for youth and adults, thanks to the DHS students that are part of Next Gen under Isaiah's leadership. So that was fantastic, and it was a really great opportunity and to be together and not only to celebrate Martin Luther King, but also to really consider how we as a community are actively and can more actively build beloved community here. The program, the pre-program surprise highlight for Mr. McKenna was being presented with a statement from the State House by Senator Lovely and Representative Kierans, honoring his founding of this committee and his multiple decades of service. So that was delightful that you could
While I don't get mad, I get even.
Well, yes, you know who to thank. The podium became available. So that was, it was a fantastic day. We were a little impacted by the snow. I meant to ask Chief Lovell, who was there, to see if he could give me a count of folks in the room. I don't know if that's a built-in ability for officers, but I thought he might have more of a sense of it than I did. Again, great thanks to our partners with DPS, Danvers Public School, and particularly Assistant Superintendent Mary Wormers and Alex Grover, their choral director, and an amazing Chris Smith, who leads the art department. It was fantastic. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the sponsors, so I would just like to give a big shout out to Danvers Kiwanis, Essex County OBGYN Associates, Representative Sally Kierans, Senator Joan Lovely, Maple Street Church, Northeast Community Bank, Paul and Connie Pollock, and John M. Ross and Son. And finally, in closing, I just want to say we've been, there's been reference, some of you may know that when we hear the name Jasmine, as Lieutenant Sullivan was referring to, Jasmine Ramon served as the town's Director of Equity and Inclusion, and is now the Chief Program Officer with Girls Inc. in Lynn and Boston, and she received our Seed of Hope Award this year. So it was delightful to welcome her back to Danvers and to celebrate her years and impact while on staff here. Mr. Pollock.
Thank you. You are on the committee. Anything to say, anything to add?
I think Karen worked tirelessly for this program, and it was an amazing program with all of the speakers and the panelists. Even our own Dr. Charles Desmond spoke a little bit at the event, and it was good to be able to honor Jasmine and all the work that she's done in the 2 years that she's been here. We really have had more programs through the HRIC than we've ever had before in the time that she's been here. And she really has sown seeds of hope in this town and given so many of us a voice that we didn't have before, and brought us in community with each other. So it was really nice to be able to honor her on that day, and to hear all of the several panelists who spoke. It was a lot of good messages to take with us in terms of moving like Dr. King and being together in community.
Anyone else want to comment?
I just wanted to say how touching it was to see how moved Jasmine was to receive the award, and it just reminds us that sometimes we think people know that they're doing a lot for us and we appreciate it, but, you know, really making that acknowledgement, it really goes a long way. Because she was just so touched, and, you know, all the work that she's done, we want her to know that it didn't go unnoticed. So that was really nice. I think that makes it all worth it when you're doing these things, so, yeah.
Jorge? Charles? Donna?
I thought it was an exceptional event. I've been to a lot of these. I don't even know. I don't need it. I guess I do. No, I just thought it was it was an amazing event. I got really good feedback from a lot of people that were there. And I just thought it went really well. It was a slightly different format than we've had in the past, and I thought it worked well. So thank you for your work here.
David?
I think it's wonderful seeing that many people come together and gathering for a message of peace and harmony, and I hope we can continue doing that. And thank you again for the honor. I think you overestimated my influence. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time 30 years ago, and you guys have done all the work, not me. So, thank you.
David. Well, everybody said probably what I could say, but Karen, you and your group, they're here. I can see them. They're all here. All of them are here, I believe. And I was down at the high school around 8:30 that morning just to check, because I really didn't know where this was going. And boy, they had it cleaned out then. By then, they had it really cleaned. Every parking lot, every walkway, it was a no-brainer. The day was a beautiful day, cold, but a beautiful day. And like Donna, I thought really probably one of the best attended. And I've been to every single one of them since about 2015 when we moved it to the high school. And for some reason, I can't put my finger on it. I don't know why. But I just noticed it early on when we had that whole opening up, that when we used the dining area, and there are just a lot of folks there. And before the event even started, Friday I was there with Karen and Dr. Desmond, and they only had about 74 chairs set up, and I think they brought out another 15, 20 and put them up. So, I mean, really, it was really a wonderful crowd and a wonderful event. I couldn't be more pleased with the way it went. So thank you, Karen, and your group. And you'll sign the contract for next year immediately, correct?
We were delighted to serve for
Yeah.
this year.
Mr. Chair? A couple more things. I just wanted to say it was great to have Isaiah on the team as well. As a new member of the HRIC, he's jumped right in and really was a breath of fresh air, and it was really great to have him on the team as well. And I did also want to say thank you to Susie's Bookstore that came out from Rockport. They are the only Black-owned bookstore in the North Shore. So if you ever go to Rockport, go to Baskin Neck and check out Susie's Bookstore. But it was lovely to have them at our event as well, and they brought a great selection of books, too.
Okay.
And I believe DCAT will come out and tell us. If you weren't there, Danvers, you can catch it on DCAT.
It's on now. I think it might be on the YouTube, so however that
Okay.
works out.
Great.
Yeah, I did, I saw it.
Yeah,
So
great.
it was very well attended. Okay, now, next gen report out, Isaiah.
I'm not doing the next gen report out. Our next gen leader is this year.
Okay, great. Please identify yourself.
Good evening, HRIC committee. My name is Jack Cronus, and I'm the external liaison for NextGen. I am pleased to provide you with the update on the progress of our NextGen Equity and Leadership Program. Our initiative continues to make significant strokes in developing the next generation of socially responsible leaders with a focus on equity, identity, leadership, and inclusion. NextGen has engaged in conversation with the Foundation in Combat Anti-Semitism, founded by the Kraft family, and we will visit Gillette Stadium in their facility in February. We also love for the HRC to join in that learning experience. Additionally, Malden Catholic's Black Student Council is interested in the work of NextGen, and we will be meeting with them on Wednesday the 29th to further collaborate. We are grateful for our continued support and partnership in the vital initiative. Your investment in making a tangible difference in shaping the next generation of equity-focused leaders. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to our shared vision of a more equitable and inclusive future.
Just a quick question. What's the date on that February visit to the Craft Foundation? Well, if you don't have it currently, if maybe we can get it from Isaias later.
I believe it is February 5th or 6th, but we do not have an exact date yet.
Okay.
Any other comments from the committee?
But that's great, and that's great that you've got an inquiry from the school in Malden. That's wonderful that what you're happening here is getting out and, you know, providing some encouragement and inspiration and a model to others. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8, school committee meeting. I attended the recent school committee with Isaiah. Isaiah and I, we were there for the first part of the meeting, when the audience is allowed to present or ask questions. And we basically, I was there probably, which I do it every year, just to push the event, MLK, and the relationship that we have with the schools. And Isaiah accompanied me there, and we stayed and we listened to a presentation. And I'm going to let Isaiah do a little follow-up on it. I always like to surprise him, because it was from the newly hired, I'm not sure when he was hired, Director of Transportation for the school department. I'm not sure whether it carries over into the town. I don't think so. I think it was basically, he's a hiree from the Danvers Public Schools. And obviously, he deals with all kinds of transportation, busing, special ed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was an interesting discussion. And he ran a survey and asked questions of the folks in town, I think the parents of students, and it was interesting, some of the, asking for pros and cons, what they liked, what they didn't like, et cetera. And I'll let Isaiah carry it, because he's got a little bit of a background in this too, I think, in his family. So go ahead, Isaiah.
So I believe his name was David Pulsifer, and he's the new Denver Public Schools Director of Transportation, as
Yes.
Mr. Pollock said. After his presentation, I went up to talk to him a little bit, because I have a lot of special needs siblings, and they take buses to school. And there's a lot of different, external vendors that our school uses. And from experience, just from hearing what they say and what my parents say, they are not always the most reliable, or they're not the most reliable or qualified to be taking care of especially special needs children who need a lot of attention. And so a lot of things go by, a lot of regulation isn't followed, and it causes a lot more problems that there needs to be. And so Mr. Pulsifer is working on creating, I believe, a in-school and district way of transporting special needs students to school, and expanding that with our DPW vans. Apparently, he says he has 3 set up already, and they're working to set up an additional 3. And so, yeah, I don't know.
We thought it was very productive. Of course, Isaiah buttonholed him when we were all walking out together, so we caught him in the corridor. Wouldn't let him go down the stairs until we answered some questions. It was a good time. We enjoyed going, and I will look forward. Again, I think I'm the unofficial liaison, and if anyone wants to visit the school committee meeting at some point, just give me a text and take my place, or I'll meet you there, whatever, okay? But that's it. Any comments? Yes, please.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Isaiah, you said 3 vans as of now, and is this for the entire school district, or is it just for the elementary or high school, middle school? How's that working?
From what I remember, it's so far just for the entire school district, but they're planning on expanding 3 defunct vans, they're renovating them and trying to expand the program to 6 right now. And he's also working on SOPs and procedures, so that the Danvers in-district monitors and drivers have procedures to follow.
Thank you.
One thing that came up, well, first of all, any comments? Please. All right. the transportation system regarding just schools with buses and vans is it's so hard for them to get drivers. And it's not just Danvers, it's statewide or maybe even nationally. So the sense we got was that, you just don't know. You got to be careful that corners aren't cut, and so you're not getting the qualified people you want, or you might not even have the money to support, to hire some folks, because since for the last couple of years, it's been very difficult. I remember hearing members of the previous school committee discussing the fact that they were having problems with every school bus you go by now, no matter what company it is, they have a big sign on hiring. They're looking for drivers. But our goal is, from what I heard the other night, is to have qualified drivers. That's what we're looking for. So I'll leave it at that. Any other comments on that? Yes, Isaiah.
Two things. First, Mr. Pulsfer mentioned at the school committee meeting that he's looking for experienced or caring community members that want to work as either bus driver or a school monitor for the district. They're looking all over the place in Danvers for that, so spread the message. And second, I think it's important to follow up on something we talked about last meeting with Mr. Crane. Mr. Crane mentioned that the school committee has a presentation on their equity efforts, and I was just wondering if we should follow up on that and try to get that presentation to us.
We're going to follow up on that. And I think that what I would like to do, if I have the support of the committee, is to contact Mary Wormers to see if she can give us that presentation. It's about a 10 or 15 minute. I don't think it went longer than that. But it also had some very interesting statistics about population, et cetera, the growth and the not growth and where we're going as a town. And I think it would be a good idea if we can get Mary here, maybe in our February meeting or March. We don't have any events right now, so it's sort of a good time to do a little outreach and maybe learn a little bit more about what's going on in the school system as it pertains to all the things that we're concerned about. And so I will reach out to her and see if we can get her here, hopefully in the next couple of months. Question?
I think it would be good to watch that presentation and also have someone here from the school committee.
Oh, I
Not
want
just Mary.
to, no, well, anyway, yes. In fact, when we heard of course, the superintendent, I can't speak for him. I don't know whether he could be here, but they're very active, and they both, it's not one of these things where, he and Mary share ideas, and there's a good give and take. So I think if we could get them here, it would be beneficial to the committee. And I'll work on that. Okay?
Yeah. Dan and Mary have always been really very responsive,
Yes,
but
yes.
would like someone from the school committee
Okay.
to come in. Yeah.
I see that. We can do that, too. Anything else on that particular topic? Sarah?
I just want to say that I'm so glad to hear about the transportation report because I feel that school transportation can often be overlooked. It's an incredibly essential time of day for a lot of our smaller citizens. And if you think about the amount of time and what can happen to and from school, it's the connecting point between the home community and the school community. And, by supporting that process, in essence, we're supporting the whole big picture, the home, the community, and our Danvers citizens. So it's really just encouraging to hear that that was such a important topic at the school committee meeting. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. O'Brien. Sarah, by the way, just completed her PhD, so good job, great job. Congratulations. Next up is the incident report, and Christy isn't here. Unfortunately, we have not been able to get a date yet, as crazy as it seems. She's been flat out. I haven't. I can't use that excuse, but she's been very, very busy, and we will get on it. I noticed, and I'm going to, Johan, you had a statement that you put forth back when the incident.
Oh, yes.
I have that, a copy of that, and I would like you to consider helping us once we get to the point where we want to draft something, because I thought your report was very, your statement was very concise.
Oh, thank you.
And, you know, but we will work on it. The idea of an, I don't know if I'm using the correct verbiage that we want to do, instant report. If there's anything that's held us back, it's us, me, and I haven't been able to get together with Christie yet, so we're working on it, and hopefully we'll get it done. As a friend of mine always says, just tell me you're working on it, and we'll keep.
Pardon me, Paul, just, I think they're calling it crisis response.
Something, yeah, right. I had down incident response, but.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Same thing, it could be, right. But it's gonna be on the agenda, and we'll continue to move forward with it. Any questions on that particular agenda item? Moving on, update from Johan Hunter regarding Black Excellence event.
Sure. So we have been working diligently on the Black Excellence event, which our committee is really the same from last year, with the addition of one person who kind of was on our committee but was due to give birth in January, who is now, fully on the committee. So in any case, the Black Excellence event will take place on Saturday, February the 8th at the Maple Street Church from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. We have soul food catered. Our theme this year is Black Excellence, a Salute to Jazz. Every table will be themed after a different jazz artist, and we do have a celloist, and she's a musical director, Marshanda, who is a former Danvers resident, but currently lives in Beverly. And she is a celloist who will be coming with student accompaniments, and she will be performing intermittently throughout the evening. While she's on break, we will have DJ music playing, which will be, still with our jazz theme. We are also hoping to honor someone for the first time. This is our second annual, so we wanted to recognize people in the community. And we are in contact with someone that we hope to highlight. Once that person gets back to us, we can put their information out there. But we have spoken with Sally and Joan, who can also be there for that recognition for that individual as well. So we're really looking forward to it. Maple Street Church is also ironically having a jazz Sunday the next day, so I guess jazz is just the theme of 2025. So I think that we ended up being in the right location. So if any of you guys can make it, it's completely free and open to the public, family friendly. Soul food will be served, and we'd love to have you.
You said 5 to 8, right?
5 to 7 this year. Yeah, we chopped off 1 hour. Just to try to encourage more of the full families to attend, yeah.
This coming Saturday.
Not past bedtime.
February 7th. February.
Yeah.
Okay.
February 8th.
Any comments from the members? Questions? All set. I plan on being there, I tell you that, or else, right? All right, the last item is fundraising, and I'm just gonna, Karen mentioned those sponsors, so we did get we got a lot of nice help from folks in that, and that worked out very well. And also, I have an announcement, thanks to Jorge, we got a generous gift from Boston Bridges just recently, which is similar to what we ended up getting last year, so we're very pleased with that, and Jorge doesn't know it, but he's now our grants man. Did a great job, Jorge. No, seriously, we were really pleased with that, and this is important that we continue to reach out to groups that want to help us, and it makes it a lot easier for us to do some of the things we want to do. As you notice, I have new business. Is there any comment on fundraising? Anything at all that? Okay. New business, some of the things I had, we're going to mention, they've already been discussed, primarily the outreach to the school committee and Danvers Public Schools. Does anyone else have any new business or announcements that they would like to make before we adjourn?
I just wanted to mention, and I was actually just looking up the name of it, but when Kristen left the committee, I took over her role as a liaison to the Smith School Advisory Council.
School council,
Parents Advisory or?
No, it's not Parents Advisory.
the school council.
Ooh, I would have to look up the name. But I just want to say that I met with them just about 2 weeks ago, and we report out on various things. For example, the ST math that the students do, how those outcomes are happening. At the end of last year, we learned that Smith School would be getting more students that needed support from different schools, and that's, I actually mentioned it to another parent, and they weren't even aware of that. That there are some accommodations and special supports that they do provide for students that sometimes need one-on-one, or they might be in a micro-sized classroom, like a classroom just for 6 students, where there's a lot of supports in those classrooms, and the students, once they start doing better, then they can be reintegrated into larger classrooms if they're ready for that. So in any case, I met with them recently. We went through the ST math scores, which are different because I think what we're doing this year is trying to ensure that some students were kind of going ahead because it is a little bit of an educational game, but you know how games are. You just want to go and go and go. So I think this year they're doing a better job of like, okay, this is where you should be for this grade, and we really don't want you to go too far with it because we want you to have it for the next grade, and that sort of thing. So they went through that, and every 2 months or so I meet with them, so I'm going to just keep those notes for you guys so that you know what's going on there, but all is well, everything's positive on that front.
Well, I think it's great that we have people on the committee that are taking part in other aspects of the community, specifically in the schools. I mean, it's one of the, I can tell you this, I think Dr. Charles will agree with me, years ago, one of the reasons I believe we moved the MLK event into the schools was to get involved with the schools, and it's easy to say, well, I'm not going to repeat myself again, but it was obvious that we're getting that the turnout is with school children too, and that's where you want to start. Thank you very much. Anything else, new business? If not, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Nobody, you want to stay here?
So moved.
Hear a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good night, Danvers.